Somebody warn him and tell him that we coming.
My time is right now. Tell me, are you ready for me? Better get ready for me. I'm here for the taking. I am coming. My time is right now. Tell me, are you ready for me? Better get ready, 'cause I'm coming.
I like the way I am. Though I've got a long way to go, I like the road that I'm on. Every day I'm learning more. I like the way I made. Not another one quite like me, no. After all is said and done, I'm happy with me. I like the way I am. Though I've got a long way to go, I like the road that I'm on. And every day I'm learning more.
Good evening. Good evening. Happy Memorial Day. I am so glad about this evening. Thank you for tuning in and sharing with us on tonight. I just want to leave a little something with you before we get started that I wrote. Tonight is going to be really special. We're going to talk about saving the sisterhood, giving up our right to be right. And so every time you see another woman rising as your failure or you're rising as theirs, you perpetuate the notion that we are meant to be at odds with each other. The rising together is not possible, which we all know that it is possible, because we take away from each other's ability to manifest and grow in our greatness. This world does enough each day to beat us down, exploit, and oppress women. Don't assist in any sister's demise and believe that doing so is making room for you and setting you up for conditions of elevation. When you find yourself hating on a sister, when you experience yourself being disturbed and disrupted by the shine of your sister, then perhaps there is room for growth. Thank you for joining us on today. I have my sisters with me, and we're going to just be discussing and talking about giving up our right to be right. So tonight, we have my sister back again from last week, Lady Fanta.
Good evening.
Next we
How are you?
have my Sister Kim.
Good evening.
And last but not least, we have Shawnee.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, ladies. So tonight, like I said, we're going to talk about saving the sisterhood. We know that that's very important in this day and age. We're not all, everybody is not connected, and we just trying to just change the game on that. It's not a me thing, it's a us thing, it's a movement. And so we want to talk about saving the sisterhood, giving up our right to be right in relationships. So hey Verna, good evening. So first up, I just want to talk about what does each of you think about saving the sisterhood? What is it an essential thing in saving a sisterhood? Fanta?
I think your topic alone explains it best. You have to give up your right to be right. To save your sisterhood sometimes, because that's the only way that you can come to a compromise. If I can't give up my right to be right, then I'm not willing to hear you so I can acknowledge what has taken place.
Absolutely. And so I know some of you saw my last video the other day rather, and I talked about relationships, and I've had the pleasure of having personal relationships with each one of these ladies. That's why they're on here tonight, because I know them. And so me and Fanta have a relationship that has been restored. And I don't know, if any of you have ever gone through something with someone that you deemed a sister, like you guys called each other sisters. There was nothing that you wouldn't do for each other. And then something happened. And, something happens and it causes you to look at each other different. It causes friction in a relationship. And Fanta and I, at one point we had to separate for a season, and we weren't we didn't have, it wasn't a big blowout, right, sis? It wasn't like we didn't
No.
argue or anything. It was just words that was spoken, and we were not friends anymore after that. And I'm not gonna lie, it hurt because I allowed other people to get in my ear about my sister, about someone who I knew, that was there for me. And so we've got to be careful and know that friendships and relationships, they are going to be tested, but it's how you handle that test. It's how we get through things that really proves the testing on what our sisterhood would be about. And so we're going to discuss more about that in a few. But Kim, what's your take on sisterhood?
In regards to giving up your rights, I think it's important that each individual tries to understand one another. Like, understanding is really important. A lot of times when there's conflict, we don't even take the time to really understand what the other person is saying or how they're feeling. And I think that that's essential. If you're trying to, really save the sisterhood and restore it, you have to make sure you are willing to understand what the other person is saying.
I totally agree with that. Sometimes we listen to speak, right? We only listen so that
Absolutely.
we can respond to the hurt of somebody else. And so my sis Kim is on here because I'm all about, I'm all about being honest and open. So, we'll discuss more about that. Shawnee, what do you think?
So when it comes to sisterhood, right? Um, Something that I learned very late but early enough in life is that reconciliation doesn't always mean reconnecting. And so we have to get to a point where we can reconcile our differences, but it doesn't mean that I need to entreat you the way that we have entreated each other in the past. So, yeah, that's my take. Reconciliation does not mean that I have to reconnect in the way that I've done in the past with you. It just means that we are good. We have come to this place, and I am okay with it. I'm accepting what has transpired between us, and I've grown from it.
I totally agree with that. But would you ladies agree that sometimes as women, we say one thing and mean another? Like we'll say we're good, but then we're somewhere within us, we're not really good. And
Absolutely.
how can we, Kim? I know you're a social worker, you went to school for this. How can we get past, just saying that we're okay to really being okay about a situation with our sisters?
I think that it starts with, being honest with yourself. A lot of times we're not honest with ourselves. And so if we're not honest with ourselves, we're not going to be honest with anyone else. And so it's really taking that time to look within yourself and say, what is going on? How do I really feel about this? It's a process, but you have to process it. You have to really take that time to really reflect and be honest about, what is going on with you.
Yeah, we have a lot of issues sometimes with
A whole
ourselves.
bunch. Right, exactly.
Within ourselves, right? And it's hard to be honest on this journey of life. It's hard to just say, you know what, I have an issue with you, and it not turn into a knockdown, drag out fight, right? So, Fanta, when you get into an I don't want to say altercation, but an argument with your sister, right? An argument with your sister. How have you handled it?
So, in the past, I understand why some of us say that we're good and we're not. Because in the past, my reaction would have been just that. Now we got to have a knockdown, drag out. This is how we have to handle this. And because you don't want to deal with that, it's easy to just say, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I think I've grown to the place where I'm able to say, I'm not okay. And we can't continue here until we can both be okay in this place. So if we are having a disagreement, whatever it may be, at some point we're going to have to separate so we can take time, calm down, and come back together and have a conversation so we can both be okay. Because if we're just sitting here walking around each other, moving around each other, then that's just an explosion that's waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Agreed.
Shawnee, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to confront a sister, and how did that go for you? What were your challenges?
I needed time. Um, Not necessarily because I was ready to mop her or whatever like that, but I needed time to grow.
Right.
I needed time to grow. I felt like the space that I was in at the time was a very crucial time for me. I was going through a huge transition, and you don't. I didn't see it coming, right? And so, like, I knew that I was angry. I knew that I was upset, but I also knew that a part of me still valued what we once had, right? And so, I know now that it was God that just kind of just allowed this separation so that not so that I can try to figure out what was wrong with her, but so that I can one heal from the hurt and then be able to go back and have a conversation where we didn't even have to revisit what happened. We just needed to kind of agree to move forward. And again, I'm gonna go back to my first statement. Are we as close as we were before? Absolutely not. However, there is no ill intent in me towards her or her towards me. We are good, you know?
Yeah. And that's maturity. That's when you know that you've matured, when you can get to the place. Verna says agreeing to disagree, conflict resolution. Absolutely right. A lot of times we feel like if we don't agree with a person that it has to be an argument. We don't
Mhm.
have to argue. It could be
Yeah.
okay. Guys, put your questions up here. Share this video, like it. We want to get more questions up here so we could talk about. But Kim, what do you think about the term when they say agree to disagree? Do you feel like it's like a broad term and cliche, or is it something that we really have to work for? Like, is it a process to this?
I think, in regards to the term agree to disagree, I think it's something that is very necessary. Like Verna said, it's a part of conflict resolution skills. Like, it's something that, most of the time everyone will encounter, where you're talking to someone or, having an issue with someone and you just cannot like agree with what they're saying. But, like each of us have said, that's okay. It's okay to, disagree and still love that person. But I think our language matters. How we go about it plays a humongous role in how that comes across. Because if we have like an attitude like, yeah, whatever, it's whatever, that's not good. That's not a good way to agree to disagree. It needs to be, we need to be mature about it. We need to be sensitive about it. We need to be understanding about it. And I know for myself, I've had many predicaments where I could say to one of my friends, I hear you, but I don't agree with that. But it's still love. So I think how our language matters. Like I said, how we come across plays a big role in whether or not people can receive that.
When you say saving the sisterhood, what exactly is it about the sisterhood that needs to be saved? Fanta?
The connection, the loyalty to one another,
Yeah,
the uplifting each other, the encouraging each other, just the love, the genuine love for each other.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that we've lost that. And perhaps that's because the term sis is used so loosely that now everybody is, oh, sis this, sis that, and everybody is sis. But we have lost the effectiveness of really being a sister to someone. And the sisterhood it's a core of people. It's a core of people. And in that core, the first thing is love and loyalty. Like if you don't love someone and you don't have the attributes to be loyal, because just because we fall out, does that mean now that I don't love you? No. Just because we fall out, does that mean now
Right.
that my loyalty to you dies? A
Right.
lot of times we're finding that we're not friends with people, and then there goes the exposure, there goes the loyalty. So Shawnee, have you experienced it where you have, loved someone and then you felt like what you shared with them was, brought back up or exposed? How did you handle that? And how did it affect you? Unmute your phone. Unmute. No, go ahead.
You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo! That's a question. I have to be honest that I'm still dealing with this particular question where I had questions like why did this have to be something that, why me? That was my question because, we all think that we are, good friends to people, and sometimes the bad things happen to the ones that are the riders, the ones that are there. How did I deal with it? Um, I can't change people. I can only change Shawnee, right? And so there's something that I learned at my church. Shout out to Benaya. We can't bring other people to God about situations. We can only bring ourselves to Him, right? And so, in bringing myself to Him, Lord, you have to first show me what part that I, contribute to this whole. Because it ain't never no one man band. You
Right.
contribute in some
Right.
way, right? And then now, Shawnee, how do you move past this? Because guess what? What if this person don't change? What if this person stays exactly who they are? You have to be able to mature and grow from that. And so, like, my learning has been that one, a disconnect, you know, a cutoff, we want to call it everything. It doesn't mean that I'm still beefing with you. Like there's no
Yes.
beef. There's no like when I see you, I'ma drag you. I was there at one point, very recently, probably since you asked me to be on here, I had to be like, get that out your spirit before you start talking about it.
Wait a minute. That was just
But
a few days.
We gotta get to the place. We gotta get to the place where we see that it's not beef, right? And I was talking to my sister, Abraham and Lot, they had to disconnect, right? There's no beef though. Like, and they was
Come on,
rotting for
preacher.
how long? Huh? Knock it off. But there was a disconnect. Why? Because there was purpose on the other end for Abraham, and then there was purpose for Lot. Like, so sometimes it has to happen. It has to happen, and we have to stop thinking that because I'm not rocking with you no more, that I'm beefing with you. That's not it. Because guess what? There's a level you have to grow to, and it might not involve Shawnee. It's just like I gotta eat the fact that we not as cool anymore. People have to be okay with it just ending. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying ending the sisterhood because guess what? I got sisters. They gonna always be my sisters. I got biological sisters, always gonna be my sisters. We can't change that. And so if we're calling each other sis, and as you said, Charmaine, we use it we use it loosely. Find out who your sisters are, and sometimes you and your sisters gonna be. But you still my sis at the end of the day. I'm not doing nobody no favors by blasting you. Because here's the thing, just like they can blast you, we can blast them too.
Right.
Because I got stuff that I can say too. But where's the growth and maturity at? People need an example.
Absolutely. People need an example. You're right. So, Kim, would you say, is this loyalty a byproduct of competition or is it a product of insecurity in the individual?
I think it's both. Um, I feel like a lot of people are not taught how to be in relationships. Um, because of whatever they may have gone through when they were younger, with friends, with with their family members or what have you. And so a lot of times, it really comes down to unresolved issues, that we haven't worked through. Now we're adults and we're trying to have relationships, and, we're unsuccessful because of all of the other stuff that we, haven't dealt with.
Right.
So I think that it can definitely be both. There are some people that, genuinely are just haters, or they have a coveting spirit, as I call it. People
We
who,
move past the hater term. Coveting
right.
spirits.
Come on, coveting spirit. Yeah. People who, they always want what someone else has. And, they're not content in what they have, because if they see that someone else is doing something, then, now it's like, I want to have that too. And that, I've seen that so much, especially amongst the women. And it just creates like just unnecessary stuff, because at the end of the day, like, God has created all of us in his image, and we all can be great, we all can be awesome, but it's about perspective, and it's about people really being intentional about their healing. um like I said, because we have a lot of unresolved stuff, and if we're not intentional about working through that, and then we try to have relationships, it's not going to work.
Absolutely, guys. We've got to be intentional in order to have healthy relationships. Maybe you need to write that down somewhere, but we got to be intentional. Verna says, how can we begin to combat the spirit of competition among women? In my experience, you find yourself in a competition you didn't even sign up for.
Right.
Fanta.
That's good. That's good, Verna.
Right.
Facts.
I agree. Sometimes we find ourselves in a competition and we don't even know we're in a competition. Like, how did we get here? But I think it's a thing of support. We have to learn to support each other. We're in a place where if you're doing it, I can do it too. As opposed to, you're doing it, let me push my sister, let me encourage my sister, let me support my sister. Or if she's doing it, I can do it too. We become an enemy to each other for no reason, because we can all win. And we don't all have to do the same thing to win.
Right.
Something I'm doing can promote what you're doing and support what you're doing. And I can still be me and still stay on the assignment that's called to my life. But instead of us staying where we're supposed to be, it's, if she did it that way, I should do it that way, because I want to be in the same place. That may not be the place for you. So there's no reason for competition, because there's a place for you.
You're right. We all have a place. We all got a place that we could find ourselves in. We just got to, search within ourselves and know our lanes, right? And then walk therein.
Right.
And because we don't have to hate on nobody. We don't have to be in competition with anyone. All we have to do is work the gifts that God has placed inside of us to complete the assignment. I'm gonna ask Shawnee, how has disappointment in people shaped your dealings in sisterhood? Oh, unmute her. How has, hold on. Can you repeat the question? How has disappointment in people shaped your dealings in sisterhood?
People are human, right? And aside from your title, aside from your degrees, you are human first. And Shawnee, if you can make a mistake, then there's no way that you can not expect it to come from other people. And I think that was another aha moment for me, especially, I'm gonna say it, in the church where we trying to figure out, you're the evangelist, you're the prophetess, you're the pastor, and all the other names that we got now. We got about, I don't know, but you're human. And while we esteem people to this level out of reverence, out of respect, I'm never ever going to forget that you are capable of being just as human as I am. And I'm not going to remove you from mistakes and, being messy or being petty. You got it in you too. So I think that's what kind of keeps me, like, all right, like I can eat it a little better. Like, okay, so I'm mad right now, but I cannot not expect this from somebody who you human. So it's in you to do it.
What did you say, Kim?
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Shawnee was saying. I totally agree with Shawnee. I also think though that we set unrealistic expectations for each other, and that's something that in my 40s I've really have worked on, because a lot of times, I would have an expectation for a person, and then when I, will look back, I'm like, they kind of was showing me some things before, like I put that on them. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's really important that we do not put expectations on people. You know. Unrealistic expectations.
Right. So what do you, I'm going to move to this question, but what would you call an unrealistic expectation?
So like I'm thinking about when I was in undergrad, I had a girlfriend who we all knew lied. She was a liar. That's just who she was. She would just lie about everything. And I'll never forget, there was one summer we came home from school, and she was like, "Oh, my mom is gonna hook you up with this summer internship. You know, I told her what you wanted to do. I'll give you the information." I don't know what was going on with me that I believed her, but I took the information, and the address and everything that she gave me, it didn't even exist. And I remember being so mad, but then I thought about it like, Kim, yeah, you really played yourself because you already knew how she was giving it up. Like she had been giving it up like that for so many years, because this was probably like my junior year. So I already had like 2 years with her. So, um, stuff like that.
Right. So sometimes I think that goes into the term when they say when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Believe it.
But I
Yeah.
think that people take that term a little bit too far,
Too far. Yeah, I
because
agree.
God still extends grace, and these are the things that he died for. And so just like he extends grace, we've got to learn how to extend grace. It doesn't mean that we forget what the person does or who they are, but there is always room for growth, right? So we got to always allow people to grow. And if they don't grow, then listen, we know what it is. Verna
Right.
says, love people where they are, not where you want them to be. That
Yeah.
is
Yep.
so
Yep. That's
right.
good, Verna. Yeah.
That is
That's real
so
good.
right. And I think we have a hard time doing that. Fanta, what was the moment that you realized that you needed to change your attitude about how you dealt with the sister?
The moment I evaluated myself,
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
taking a look at how I dealt with other people, taking a look at my response to other people made me understand and accept how they responded better. Because if my response is to just walk away, why should your response be to chase me?
Wow.
If
That's
my
good. That's
response
good.
is
Hmm.
confrontation, you go for confrontation, you're going to get what you came for. And so when you go in a certain way, you get you get the results that you put in. And I started to think about that and evaluate it, because I'm one of those people. I always take a step back, but depending on the situation, it depends on how big of a step back I need to take. And I had to understand that other people have to take a step back so they can process. We all have to go through a process, and my process is not your process. Everybody has to handle it according to where they are.
Absolutely. And that ties into giving up our right to be right, because a lot of times we just want to be right in the situation. We just want to get our point across. And, I've learned that, I could very well be right in how I feel about something,
Right.
or, how I portrayed how something looked and how it was presented to me. But I had to ask myself, is the relationship that I have with the person, is it worth it?
Right.
Because we could go head toe to toe, and we could argue, and we could have a whole thing, and we could not speak forever, for years, never again. But, at some point, when you start looking over your life, like Shawnee said, as you mature, you've got to make sound decisions to say, listen, I got to get past this. You know what? And that very well may mean that you've got to go back and apologize to some people,
Right.
even though you're wrong, right? That's giving up our right to be right. We know we right. We have every right to feel how we feel. But we
Right.
know that sometimes the person is not mature enough to come to us. So then now we've got to humble ourselves from our feelings of knowing we're right and say, you know what, this is worth more. So Kim, have you found yourself in a position where you had to step back and go to someone and make it right, even though you knew you were right?
100%. It actually happened with a family member, and I remember, like, seriously, God has spoke to me. Like, you need, even though what you did wasn't wrong, you need to go. You need to be the person that initiates, you know, the conversation. And so I remember calling them, and I apologized. And from that moment forward, it actually made us closer. Like, I feel like that family member was really able to see just like the love of God through me, and it changed how they saw me, and it allowed us to really build even closer and stronger, relationship, you know. But at the end of the day, we really have to, like Fanta said, we have to, assess whether or not we value that relationship. Like if it's a relationship that you value, then you have to put your pride aside. Like straight up, you have to put your pride aside, and you have to, be willing to just walk in love. um, and that was something that I was challenged with some years ago. And it was a really hard thing in some instances, to just like walk in love. But, I was reminded that, God is love. And if I'm out here saying that I love God and I'm a follower of Christ, then, walking in love is imperative in relationships. It's imperative.
Yeah, we got to really live the life we speak about. And we can't be
Hmm.
out here trying to preach, sing, talk Jesus, and then we're not showing the fruit, right? We're not, doing what Jesus did. And although, yes, he was harsh in some of his words, and he had, we all know the scriptures, but we've got to be loving, because at the end of the day, love draws.
Yes, it does.
Right.
It draws. And like you said that God spoke to you. I'm a firm believer that when you are wrong, God will speak to you. God will
Hmm.
tell you, God will show you. But
Yes, he
I
does.
hear people all the time like, oh, God don't speak. God didn't tell me that. And it's just like,
Right.
God, I don't know. God gets you when you are wrong. And if he's
Mhm.
not, then step your prayer life up a bit. Because God will let you know. Kia says, right, don't talk Jesus and can't walk like him. Right. And a lot of times, you're right, Kia. A lot of times that means walking and carrying the cross. And the
Mhm.
cross
Yeah.
is it's heavy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah. We have to have a,
heavy.
a God conscience. And a lot of times, a lot of us don't.
Right.
We don't have a God conscience at all. A godly conscience. Yeah.
Right. We got to walk this thing out. We've got to extend the grace and then be able to go and pick someone else up. Be able to go and not just leave our sisters there. Not just say, you know what? I knew they was like that. They ain't for me. Cause that's the big thing. Oh, they hate us. They hating on me. They want what I got. Like, listen, we all could have the same things, and not if not the same things, but we all could do the same things, right? We all have dreams and aspirations, and God can bless everybody at the same time because he's God. Apostle Amethyst says, when that happens, I feel the individual needs a spiritual heart transplant. So that's God has to, right, work on our hearts. Fanta, if you could be honest, what would you say was the hardest thing that God had to really work on your heart about?
Um, Regarding relationships, I would say my relationship with my mother.
Good.
Thinking back to my childhood and the things that I experienced, I felt like Where was my covering? And so when I got to a certain age, I just distanced myself. That was my way of coping. That was my way of handling it. But it got to a place where she was in need. And it came to a place of, do I just stay in my distance? Or do I now do what God has told me I must do and forgive? Because sometimes we have to go in and forgive without the apology.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
good. That's good.
Even when I speak to my mother up to last week, I tried to discuss the things that have occurred, and 9 out of 10, it's like I made this up. This never happened. And I'm just like, who are you? But I had to get to the place that even without the apology, even without the acknowledgement, okay, I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to put away all of the anger. And I know that God has called me to love you a certain way. And so I have to do my part despite how you decide to do yours.
That's good. I think sometimes we have to unlearn the habits of our youth in order to grow healthy adult relationships. It takes a tree that has to be pruned in order to live.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We have to definitely get rid of some of these things. And so, Shawnee, what would you say regarding that?
I'm gonna agree with Fanta and say, forgiveness. Like just knowing that my point was valid, like I was right on on everything, like, but learning how to genuinely forgive people and not kind of just smile over it, dance over it, be good in one instance and then not, you know what I'm saying? Um, I knew that I needed to forgive multiple people, right? But I also knew that I needed to be forgiven because Shawnee, you done did some stuff too. And so I think that when I was in this growth point in my life, because it grew me up a lot, forgiveness was hard because I
Mm-hmm.
stood in the place where I knew that people, you did it to me. So I'm waiting for y'all to say sorry. And sometimes we get caught up in the narrative of the being right, that's the only side of the story we're willing to stay on. And everybody else just got to get on this side, or you're an enemy too. You're an enemy
Right.
too. And I don't want to hear you telling me that I need to forgive. No, I need an apology first, right? But I knew that even like I knew that I was in a place where I needed to be forgiven as well. And so like it took a lot out of me to just like grow up and learn to forgive people. Just learn to forgive people.
Kim, how can we learn to forgive people? I think you can hear me,
Yeah.
Kim? Okay. How can we start the process? Unmute your phone, right? How can we
Sorry.
start the process of forgiveness?
Um, I think that process starts with, once again, like, us really being honest with ourselves. Like the work really starts with us. Um, and, like I said, there are things that we know that we have gone through, that we have not been intentional about in regards to, that part of us being healed. And I think once you start the healing process, once you start being honest with yourself, um, it's easier, when you see yourself, then it's easier to forgive others and to extend forgiveness. Um, um, there's also a part too where we have to forgive ourselves, like Shawnee was talking about, because there's definitely things that I know we all have done that requires, forgiveness. And so, it really starts with, just being honest. Like the process of healing will not start unless we're honest with ourselves. We have to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with ourselves, and that's why you see people can talk a good game and they say that, oh, I'm good, I'm in a good place, and then you see them kind of do the same thing all over again, like they cycle, because they're not being honest. We're not being honest with ourselves. And so I think that, for me as a Christian, I'm always reminded of the fact that, God forgives us. And I know for me, there's always something that I'm probably doing that, I need forgiveness for. And so I try to, God, he forgives me. And so, I owe that to somebody else.
Right. Someone said,
Sorry, somebody keeps trying to
forgive.
call.
Someone said forgiveness is not as hard as we make it.
It
So
depends.
yeah, I think that it depends on the person,
Yeah,
right? Because for some, some people have gone through traumatic experiences.
exactly. Yeah,
And, as a child growing up, when you go through trauma, if you haven't had anyone in your life to cultivate you as you grow and to teach you how to become better, how to express yourself, how to let certain things go, you're
yep.
going to have a hard time forgiving people, right? And so it's not as hard as we make it as an adult, possibly, but we've got everything starts at the root of our childhood, how we were raised, what our upbringings were. And for some people, it's really hard to forgive. So Fanta, wait, Kia said damaged goods can't be good to anyone
Yeah.
until we deal with us.
You
Absolutely
have to deal
right.
with yourself. Yeah.
So on your journey, you talked about forgiveness, right? How the hardest thing that you could think of, what was it that made you say, you know what, I've got to forgive in a new way?
Dealing with sisterhood.
Or yeah.
Again, it's a process of I often take a lot of time and shut down and take time by myself. And I mean literally by myself, no TV, no phone, just a lot of times just sitting in silence. And oftentimes thinking in that space, if you have no choice but to see you. You have no choice but to evaluate you. You're in that space with you. And when you start to really see you, then you have to understand, you begin to understand others. Because now I don't have to be, not that I don't have to, because we all have options, but now I'm not as judgmental. Now I'm not as angry. Now I'm not so much looking for a response because I'm more focused on my response. And when I began to focus on my response, it made it easier for me to forgive, because some people are just not going to give you the apology. Some people are just, they don't acknowledge, they don't see the wrong that they've done. They even at some point, some people will look at it as it was a reaction to whatever you've done. And so when you evaluate yourself, you say, maybe I did do something. Maybe I did respond a way that made you feel some way. It may not have been it may not have been intentional, but just because I didn't intend it that way doesn't mean that you didn't take it that way. And so you just learn to live without the apology. So I can forgive you even without the apology. Again, as Shawnee said, we may never go back to the place of where we used to be. And more than likely we won't. But I've done my part. I've forgiven you. I've opened the door for us to have the conversation. And now we have to move on.
Yeah, forgiveness is that's like a huge thing with us as women, because it's easy to hold on to grudges, it's easy to hold on to past hurts, it's easy to, just get stuck. And I think that we're stuck in unforgiveness, and that's why for many of us, we can't produce.
Right.
We Unforgiveness will have you stagnant. It will have you stuck in a place where you're like, God, what you're asking God, why am I not producing? Why aren't things working for me? You've got to go back and look over your life and start evaluating some things and relationships and sisterhood that you could have saved. Some things are salvageable, right? And we've got you can't just be in a place where you just saying, oh, I'm not going to forgive a person. I can never, because the greatest offense can be forgiven. Why? Because we have done the greatest offenses to God, and he still forgives us over and over again. The Bible
Right.
says, we say, how many times should we forgive? The Bible tells us 70 times 7. And when you
Yeah.
think about it, that's like our whole life.
Yeah.
We should always be forgiving because we are not exempt from something happening to us. So the thing that someone has done to us, I'm not saying that you would do it, but I'm not saying that you couldn't. Right. So we've got to put in ourselves in a place of people and understand that, like Shawnee said, like Kim said, like Fanta said, people are human, and we've got to allow people to make their human mistakes. And sometimes we're making mistakes on our journey. We're all trying to find our way, but forgiveness has to be the forefront, and we've got to be able to deal with ourselves. Tammy says it goes on too long when it consumes your thoughts and see everyone through your pain. Exactly. Exactly. We've got to stop seeing everybody through that pain, every new friendship. So,
Mm-hmm.
Shawnee, how since you have matured and you're seeing things differently, how what would you say was one of the key things to you not seeing people the way that other people have handled you in the past?
I didn't hear the question. I think you know my good.
I said, how would you, since you're maturing and you're growing in your walk with
She's not hearing you.
sisterhood? You don't hear me, Fanta? Can you say the question?
Repeat it.
I was, I was saying, how can since how can she? I'm all jumbled up now. Since she's matured in her walk, what has helped her to not see new friends in her old friendships that she's gone through in the past, like wrong things that she's experienced?
Shawnee, since you've experienced your past experiences, how have your new relationships allowed you to not see them as your past relationships?
I think that every situation, it was a learning experience for me. Um, I have to admit that there are instances and there are times where I expect the worst, and so we kick here, we good, we rocking, but a part of me is like side eyeing or anticipating, something to go wrong, and so that has been my truth moving into new relationships, and I just have to learn that everybody is not out to get you, Shawnee. Like the experience that you had to go through was necessary for your growth, for somebody else who I'm going to have to now share this forgiveness story line with. But yeah, sometimes I'll be like, why are you so nice? Why are you trying to? Because I don't have nothing, okay? Can't give me nothing with a smile and maybe a chicken dinner. But like I think that has been one of the things that I've carried, and I know I need to like relinquish myself from that. But I'm grateful for the relations that I do have. I cherish those. But yeah, everybody not out to get you, Shawnee. So that has been something that I need to continue to work on, is that entreat and embrace genuineness. Embrace it because it's here for you, because now you're reaping what you have sown into others. And so sometimes my downfall is that I don't entreat it because I don't think that is for me. However, I can be that same friend for everybody else. But it is for me too. So I'm learning how to receive reciprocity. Like I do for you. Like I'm dope for you. You dope for me, and it's genuine. Y'all understand? I hope I made sense.
You
Yes, you
made
did.
sense. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to receive sometimes. So Kim, um, how have you been able to receive? I know a lot of times people shout no new friends, right? Do you believe in that?
I don't now, but I have to be honest. I went through a phase where I did believe in that. I think for me, I've been blessed with a lot of friends. I have a lot of like girlfriends, like solid relationships. And growing up, it seemed like it was really easy for me. But then, as an adult, and being honest with you guys, when I really got involved in terms of ministry and church, I really started to like struggle, and I just, I felt like, there were a lot of wolves in sheep clothing, and I went through a period where I was definitely that person that was screaming no new friends. But as I began to mature, I realized that, at least for me, the closer I became to God, the more my discernment, strengthened, and um, I'm able now to kind of like, see, like, when I'm starting friendships with people, there are some people that I recognize, it's just an assignment. Like it's not a forever kind of thing. It's like right now, this person is in my life, I'm in their life, but it's not for forever. And then there's some people I know that it's a divine, connection from God. And, when I see that it's that, I really try to put my best foot forward, and really try to do the work that it takes to, build that relationship, and ensure that it's a strong one.
Absolutely. Fanta?
I have to agree with Kim. I think I was on that bandwagon for a good while. No new friends, because when you get betrayed by the old ones, you feel
Yeah,
like, what do I need new ones for? I don't need to go through this process again. But again, I think you, as Kim said, I think you mature to a place where everybody's not the same. As Shawnee said, everybody's not the same. Everybody's not going to treat you the same. Every experience is not the same. Every sisterhood is not the same. Everybody serves a certain purpose in your life, and we can't judge them all based on past experiences. And so, not wanting to be judged by someone else's past experiences, I had to learn not to judge people by my past experiences. Because if I stayed in that place, I would have no friends. I would be sitting in the corner by myself and
Rocking.
probably think that, right, rocking, and probably thinking that this is a normal process for myself. But I had to get to the place where I don't want to be judged a certain way. And so I can't go into every relationship with that mindset. So I have to take you for face value. I have to take you, as Kim said, for whatever God is showing me about you. I have to take that in and accept that, and not figure, okay, well, Shawnee's a friend of Charmaine's, and I went through that with Charmaine, so
right,
I'm gonna
right.
stay away from Shawnee.
No. We
That just
definitely
doesn't
do
make
that.
sense.
Because we
Right.
We
do that, right?
absolutely do
Exactly.
that.
We
We
do that.
absolutely do that. And we have to get to the place where, no, I don't know Shawnee. I've never met her. Let me accept her for who she is as she steps in, and not for who she knows because of, oh, birds of a feather flock together. That's true in some cases, but everybody has to be judged according to who they are. And frankly, who are we to judge? Everybody has to be accepted for who they are.
Right. Verna says sometimes people aren't as genuine as they seem. They have to compartmentalize where they fit in, with where people fit in your life. Right. There are, it's like, you know, you have those friends that are down for whatever, right? And so then you
Mm-hmm.
have those friends that you could go to that will pray you through. You got
Right,
Right.
those
right,
friends that you
right.
could go to that'll hype you up if you mad. And you got those friends that'll talk you down off of a ledge and be like, nah, that's not the way to go. We've
Right.
got to put people in their proper places in our lives. And once we do that, then we can learn that, we have put people so high up there, like Shawnee said earlier, that now when things start happening, it's because we put them in the wrong place.
Yeah,
Right.
and they didn't even earn it.
We put
Right.
the person who fried chicken with the people who make dessert. That's
Right.
not what sis do. But we mad because the chicken is white and it's not crispy brown. And so we've got to, and that's how, listen, for some people, you got to equate it to food, right?
To
But,
make it simple.
right, to make it plain. Put people in your life in their proper places, and then it will not be as hard to forgive people. It won't be as hard for us to see people for who they are when we have them in the proper places. Everybody is not your best friend when you meet them. And
Right.
even years down the line, you start calling people your best friend. That may not be why the purpose that God had them there.
Exactly. Yep.
Everybody's not best friend. Everybody's not sis. Some people is just your friend, and that's all
Exactly.
right.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Some
Yep.
people is just your prayer partner, and that's all right. They don't flow into sister, and that's all right. We've got to stop forcing relationships and forcing people, because that's why
Absolutely.
we can't give up our right to be right, because we got people in all these different places and it's all getting mixed together, and that's not what God intended. He makes no mistakes. Do you think that part of the problem is the need for validation as to why we put people in close categories before it's time? Fanta.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That question brings me back to someone we met in church. And she came in as a part of a fellowship, but she came in like, I'm your sister. I'm your sister, but I'm your sister. And I was just like, okay, you my sister. But
Right.
there was no purpose for her to be in that place. But she felt that when she walked into, for a lack of a better term, to that atmosphere, the positions of other people, she felt like, okay, so now I'm there too. And she felt that like it was a consistent thing of, she felt the need to express that she was my sister at every event, every function, every time I saw her, every text, every message on Facebook, it was sister, sissy. And I'm okay. And I didn't take time to sit back and think about what it was that she was doing. I more looked at it like, okay, she's here. She a part of the fellowship. I'm going to just take it for what it is. And I never took time to put her in the place that she belongs.
Well, I think
And so it was
sometimes,
always a power struggle.
yeah, I think sometimes people look, they have a need for connection, right?
That's
They
what I was. Yep. Absolutely.
Right, Kim, go ahead.
No. Say what you were saying. I
Right,
agree
no,
with you.
people have a need for connection. They want to be connected to somebody. If you never grown up with a sister and then you come close to women that look strong and their walk is strong and you see how they carry themselves, we as women automatically sometimes want to be connected to that strength. We want to be connected to that person. We want to be in relationship with people who are stronger than us sometimes, who have the ability to pull out of us those things that are stuck in us. So sometimes, yeah, we come in contact with people and they automatically say, oh, my sister this and my sister that. I think it's important for us to understand, while we may know, like Fanta said, like you wasn't really sure what place that person played in your life. So we may not know at the moment. So we don't automatically start calling them sister, but then we start watching them and interacting with them, and then start seeing, okay, maybe this person isn't really a sister, but my friend, right? And
Right.
so, right, we gotta learn how to put people in their proper places in our lives, even when they come in new, even when they come in fresh. You ladies have been amazing. What does Sister Yvonne say? Or sometimes because I'm close and call you sis, they think it's the same for them when really it's not. Absolutely. Again, that goes back to everybody wanting to be connected to someone with some type of strength and ability to pull, because make no mistakes about it, we women, we see each other, right? And we know each other and we kind of know each other's moves as women. And sometimes we see the strength in each other and the person may want that. And we can't be so much in our feelings of the past that we don't understand that new relationships do exist. right? So I
Right.
want to say thank you guys on tonight. Thank you, ladies. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for everybody that tuned in. You guys got 60 seconds to leave something with the people on tonight. Fanta?
Sisterhood it's one of the most valuable things that we have. It's one of the most important things that we have, and we have to learn to take it seriously. We have to learn to actually depend on it, because sisterhood is something that's going to force us. Sisterhood can actually create a whole generation that is built and strengthened to help one another, and we have to learn to do that with integrity and with love.
Kim?
Sorry. Um, I would say that in order for us to be a true sister, we have to really be intentional about that process of healing. And then, we have to then trust the process. And then we have to, trust God ultimately, because God will give us direction. He will give us guidance. He will show us how to treat each other, how to love each other, how to support each other.
And Shawnee?
Um, so my little takeaway and my point would be let's love past the emotion, love past the hurt, love past the experience. Amen. The Bible says that love covers a multitude of sin, right? So there should be no offense that's so great that I'm going to uncover the love that exists between me and my sister. And so regardless of what happens, let love remain and let love cover. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for tuning in as we discuss giving up your right to be right. And I pray that, you take something away from this and that you allow it to make you better. We don't all have to be, bosom buddies. We're not all going to be best friends, but we can all be loving towards each other. We can all be loyal toward each other. We could all just push each other to our greatest potential, because we all can win. It's something in all of us that is amazing and that is great. And you are great, amazing woman. And don't let anyone tell you anything different, even on your days where you don't feel so amazing. Know that God made you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you are amazing, and you can accomplish everything that you set your mind to. So tune in with us on next week as we discuss our emotions, dealing with our emotions. Thank you. Share this video out. See you next week, Monday night, 9 p.m. Sanctity of Sisterhood. I am my sister's keeper. What about you?